do it now. See what you can do. Hang half 100 on them. Like, fuck it. It's Auburn.
Fun.
Who fucking cares?
Yeah.
We don't care for Auburn. Cast Iron Balls, a podcast about sports, mostly college football, but also baseball and other sports, eventually. My name is Bob, sitting across the way from my good friend and co-host. That's Abe. How you doing tonight, Abe?
Doing well, Bob.
Yeah, here we are. Lori's here, too. How you doing tonight, Lori?
I'd be better if we were watching college football, but that's fine.
Lori would be better if we were watching college football. Instead, I've got the WNBA playoffs up, Abe. I'm really into... No, I've got the Major League Baseball playoffs.
Yeah, but what playoffs?
Mets Brewers, Game 3 of a 3-game set. Bottom of the 6th.
I feel like it hardly counts as playoffs.
Nothing. Fucking Quintana can roll, man. The creep can roll. He's gone 88 pitches now. And nobody's scored in this game. Good for him, I guess. Fuck the Mets, though, obviously. Did you know the WNBA playoffs had started, Abe?
Yeah, I know that.
How? How did you know? How?
It's on TV.
I watch TV.
There was some article that apparently, Caitlin Clark's team was eliminated early because they weren't any good, and apparently the ratings have taken a bit of a slump because people were watching her mostly. But the league is doing well otherwise.
The near unanimous Rookie of the Year, I believe, correct?
I'm surprised it wasn't unanimous. It was...
There was one holdout gave it to the LSU chick, Angel Reese.
Angel Reese, yeah. Yeah, should have been unanimous. 60 Minutes did a whole piece on the WNBA last week.
You've already watched it?
Yes. Oh, yeah, no. 60 Minutes you got to keep up with. They're doing a primetime Monday thing next week. It's great.
60 Minutes is doing a Monday episode?
Yeah, this was supposed to be the presidential candidates one.
Is it about sports, Abe? What the fuck are you doing, man? This is not brains, this is balls.
The 60 Minutes started sports with the WNBA, just veered off course. We're back on track.
What have you been up to?
Same old.
Got any banter?
No, I mean, I went to go watch a movie, but that's like a Monday show.
Man, no banter for a Thursday night. Abe, it's time to live bet the games. The Thursday night football game has already started, but you don't have Amazon Prime. And I assume that you're an honorable man who has not been checking score updates between the Bucks and the Falcons. We have the Tampa Bay Bucks at Megatron's Butthole down there in Atlanta. Who you got?
So this is one of, actually, we do this at the end, but this is one of the 5 picks of mine. And so I got the Bucks winning this, not the home
He's
team.
super honorable even.
Called this game ahead of time and also live betting. Are you taking points or are you just outright here?
It's just, the Bucks winning outright. It's like a +1.5. At least that's what it showed on the sheet here. If you could take Baker Mayfield in a game, you got to do it.
Just like Lane Kiffin.
I guess when the alternative is Mr. Kirk Cousins, yes, you can occasionally take Baker Mayfield. 7-7 with 2.5 minutes to go in the first quarter.
Oh,
is the score of that game. So
I'm not losing yet.
Still a push. You're 4-6 in live betting, Abe.
Let's just call it 5 and 6.
He added it to the spreadsheet.
Let's just call it 5 and 6.
It's good enough to add to the spreadsheet.
Don't want to lose track of that. As I said, we're watching in one half of my screen here the Mets and the Brewers. I'm
playing a puzzle in my screen because I don't want to watch that.
This is the only, and now fucking Quintana has rolled his way through the 6th inning, and we go to the top of the 7th. And this is the only series of the wild card round that has gone more than 2 games. Everything else was a sweep. We'll get into that in just a second. The Braves, therefore, have been eliminated. We discussed on Monday how they had made it into the playoffs, and now on Thursday, they're rather suddenly, once again, not in the playoffs any longer. This is a team, the Braves, that lost Spencer Strider basically in the first week of the season, lost Acuna before summer really got rolling, Ozzie Albies, Michael Harris, A.J. Minter, Sean Murphy all missed significant time. Orlando Arcia, who looked like the best value shortstop in Major League Baseball last year, they signed him to a 2-year, I think it was like a $6 or $8 million contract, and he was very good. He was an all-star last year, got off to a very hot start offensively, and is a more than serviceable shortstop defensively. And as replacement for Dansby Swanson, while no Sir Dinsbaugh Swatson of House Bats wasn't bad, certainly, last year. And then this year was just an absolute black hole at the plate. He was among the worst hitters in baseball, period. Very much a return or a regression to the mean. And, it was a bummer. You lost that huge part of your offense. Not that he was injured, but just that he sucked. Just a total fucking turned into a total pumpkin by the end of basically at the start of the year. Matt Olson was pretty good. His power numbers were good. He hit almost 30 home runs and ended up slugging a decent amount. But his average was way down. And so he was sort of just okay after an unbelievable year last year. And Ozzie, even when he was back, never quite was right and was not anywhere near where he was last year either. Despite all of that, they were somehow, if you look at it, basically dead average in terms of offensive production over the course of the entire season, like 15th in batting average and 15th in hitting with runners in scoring position, dead middle in runs, like a whole, most of the offensive stats, they were right there in the center of the pack, with the exception of homers, where they ended up finishing fourth. The team still slugged a ton of dingers. But then the pitching was just unfucking believable. You figure you lose Spencer Strider, who you come in thinking this guy is a Cy Young candidate, and he goes down right away. And it's like, well, what the fuck do we do now? And it turned out they were fucking more than fine with the starting five that they ended up having. Reynaldo Lopez ended up being awesome for long stretches of the year. The kid Schwellenbacher was very, very good also. And, of course, Chris Sale had a Cy Young kind of year, and Charlie Morton was perfectly serviceable for a dude who's very nearly our age, and he was probably the worst of the bunch. Led the Major League Baseball in ERA, strikeouts, and third in WHIP, which is walks plus hits, divided by innings pitched. It's just my favorite statistic is how effective you are as a pitcher. You add the walks and the hits together and then divide by innings pitched, and the lower the number, the better you are, obviously. All that said,
That was a lot said.
Impressive performance despite a ton of injuries to very important players. I don't think I even did I mention that Austin Riley? I think I skipped Austin Riley. Austin Riley missed large portions of the season also, another big piece of this offense. So, and the defense. He's turned himself into a very good defensive third baseman. But they found dudes, and credit to Alex Anthopoulos for always finding the next dude to plug in there and have him be pretty good. But still, given everything that they lost, this should not have been a playoff team. It was fun when they got in, but the feeling in that doubleheader was like we sort of lost the actual playoff game with the Mets.
Yeah.
Where when you have two games and you desperately need to win one of them, and then the second one doesn't fucking matter really to the other team. If you lose the first one, it feels like you're just being handed whatever's behind door number 3 instead of actually choosing your own destiny. Like it didn't feel like they actually won their way in. It felt like they got in on a technicality after the Mets won that game. And like I did not see them going out to San Diego and putting up much of a fight. And as it turns out, they didn't. Although game 2 was entertaining and close. And Michael Harris, too, was awesome. I think he had 6 hits or something across 2 games. He was very, very good, including a 2-run homer last night to make the game closer than it was for the bulk of things. But this team, and I didn't watch nearly as much Braves baseball as I do in a usual season, but they just weren't that good. They didn't hit for shit with runners in scoring position after going on like an historic tear in that statistic last year, where it seemed like every time somebody made it to second base, they were being driven around. This time, it was bad, and it felt worse. I looked it up, and they're only middle of the pack in Major League Baseball, whereas it felt like it was much worse than that. But my feeling about this Braves season is mostly that it's the old thing about like I don't want to belong to any club that would accept me as a member. Like I don't want any playoff format that would accept this Braves team as a playoff team. Like this team did not feel like a playoff team. I know they won more games than the requisite number of teams, and they won just as many games as the Mets, but the Mets have been fucking awesome since the middle of June. Like literally the best team in baseball after a horrid start. So they end up having the same season, but they very much didn't feel like anything like the same team. There's a statistic floating around out there. When you include the playoff games, the Braves went 11-60 in games where they allowed 4 or more runs. And that's despite the fact that they were a middle-of-the-pack offense that scored just about as many runs as anybody else in baseball. Like there was just something about if at any point they got down big, this team was not going to fucking happen. And that was the opposite feeling from last year and that World Series team, where it's like you get to the 5th, 6th, 7th inning and you're down 7-3 or 8-5. It's like this isn't over yet. Like we're going to be just fine. We've got a killer lineup that's going to come through one more time, and things will be good. And that was not this team. They were a lot of things. They were not a team that was going to go out there and come back after a big deficit. And that's what you need if you're going to be a playoff team. It's what the Mets proved that they can do just on that last day of the season. But fundamentally, this did not feel like a playoff team to me, and I blame Major League Baseball for having a format that would allow in such a shitty team.
Would this season not be considered a success, just making it into the playoffs despite all of the things that you mentioned, or is that...
What does it mean to make it into the playoffs?
Right, but okay, so
Success.
the alternative... Okay, let's say everything else played exactly the same, and on that for that Monday doubleheader, game one, like you say, that was like the important game. They were up 3-0 and they lost it. Let's say even the gimme game, like the Mets are not even trying that hard. Let's say they lose that, and they get swept on Monday, and what the Diamondbacks get in, right? That would be like a worse season than just like winning that one game and then it's getting swept in the playoffs. Because like on paper, it looks like a more successful season, even though it's just one game. You just won one more game, and it looks not that bad.
I mean, it just proves that you're not a dumpster fire of an organization, is all getting into the playoffs means, right? Like, the Braves are, despite losing a bunch of superstars for large portions of the season, still able to compete in the National League East, which is a difficult division. We're not talking about the AL Central here that put in 3 mediocre teams like the Indians or the Guardians. I will call it, sorry, not for PC reasons, but they're the goddamn Indians. You can't convince me otherwise. The Indians, the Royals, and the Tigers all made it in, and in fact, we get Tigers at Indians now in the second round. So we've got, and then the Royals at the Yankees in the American League. Those are the 2 series: Detroit at Cleveland and Kansas City at the Yankees, starting on Saturday. Which, like, I mean, who knows what's going to happen because the playoffs are now more than ever a total fucking crapshoot. But the Tigers and the Indians and the Royals are not particularly good. What they did is they beat up on a world historical bad White Sox team. Right. I think collectively they went like 30-3.
Yeah, it's the worst record ever.
Yeah, they lost a total of 3 or 4 games. I'd have to double check that, but they just absolutely destroyed the White Sox, which is the reason that all 3 of them are in the playoffs, basically. If you take that away or just make them 500 against the White Sox, it's an entirely different playoff situation in the American League. So yeah, I guess you could say yes. Okay, then the Braves are in, and therefore they had a better season than if they hadn't. Right. But like, did they have a better season than the Diamondbacks, even though they had a slightly better record? No. Like it's just fucking arbitrary when you get down to the 5th and 6th teams that are making it into the playoffs. Which, fine, whatever.
Which is why I feel like it's not worth watching. This is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I know a lot of people who really like the Mets, including like half of my Little League fellow coaches and players.
Do they listen to the show?
Well, no, but like I want to be kept abreast of they better not anyway. I don't need locals listening to this shit. That's for sure. Be harmful to my standing and my good standing in the community, probably. But yeah, I need to be kept abreast of their playoff situation so that I can give them shit about it the next time I see them. And also, we got half our listenership are fucking Mets fans. I will say this is a trash playoff format, the current playoff format, and it has been in effect. This is its third season. 2022 was the first year, and that is in which 6 teams per league make the playoffs. The 3 division winners, and then the next 3 teams with the best record each make it. And then the top 2 teams get a bye, while the 3 through 6 seeds play each other in a 3-game wild card round. And the thing that is the one consistent thing about this wild card round, this Mets Brewers series being the exception, is that now 10 of 12 of the wild card series since this format started in 2022 have been decided in 2 games. It's just a sweep.
Yeah.
Which means that there's something about the format. I mean, granted, it's baseball, and this is a relatively small sample size. It's just 3 years. It's just 12 series. But if an outcome is happening 10 out of 12 times through 3 years, it means that it is in some significant way pointed in one direction. It is not about finding who is the best team. It is instead sort of a random outcome in which the team that wins the first game is vastly more likely to win the second game. And it's no reflection of whether or not the team is any good. The thing that I've loved about baseball, about a 162-game season, about the way that they used to decide who makes it into the playoffs and then who advances from one playoff round to the next, is that it's a fucking long war of attrition. Like you find out who truly is the best and the worst baseball team when you have to go out there every day for 6 fucking months. And then going out there for one day at the beginning of October and seeing who has the better night that night just means that you've rolled the dice. You're not determining anything about the relative merits of these fucking teams. You've just figured out that this guy is going to put an awful swing on the ball. This guy he's hit 199 this year, and in a scoreless game in the 7th inning has this ugly swing off of his back foot and hits it over the right field wall as the Brewers take a 1-0 lead.
We have to talk about something else.
I'm just saying, it's an entirely nonsensical way to find out who is the best baseball team.
I think
this current format.
That is 100% true, especially in baseball, because you have such a large enough sample size. You can tell who the good teams are and the not.
As now the Brewers have gone back to back.
Oh, wow.
A man named Frelick has just hit a home run, because that's how they do it there in Milwaukee.
This new playoff format is not designed to determine who the best team is. It's just to extract even more money, right? I mean, it's a money-making scheme, right? And so
I like money too.
So like that's the focus. They're not trying to determine anything. I do wonder though, and maybe it's too early to tell. We don't have enough of a sample size, but the team that sweeps that first round, you say like most of the teams just win the first 2 and they move on to the next round. Does it negatively impact their next round because of the pitching rotation? Like, I wonder if like it harms them in some way.
Well, I was going to extend my complaint here, but because it is such a small sample, I decided not to bother. Like in a few years, we can make that determination.
Yeah.
So far, just one. I mean, it's only 2 years, but the Astros won it as the 1 seed a couple of years ago. Whereas the Rangers, like last year's was like I think a 4 and a 6 seed in the World Series, and I think it was a 1 and a 5.
Last year was the year that the teams that rested all lost because they lost like momentum and excitement.
Right. Even though they don't have to rest for that long, they're just resting like 3 or 4 baseball days off. Like it's not a crazy amount of time downtime. It's just there is absolutely something about getting in and then getting through and then having that confidence as you move into the next round. I think that 3 out of 4 of the World Series teams since this format has started have been like 5 or 6 seeds. I think that's right. But again, I don't want to suggest that means anything just yet. Right. Whereas I think that 10 out of 12 of wild card series being sweeps probably does indicate something. And yeah, what I'm asking for is something that Major League Baseball will simply never do. Right. I want them to shrink the playoffs. I think that fewer teams should get in, whereas what they want is not they don't just want 6 teams per league. They don't just want 12 out of the 30 teams making the playoffs. What they want is for on July 30th, like the end of July at the trade deadline, for there to be like 24 teams who think that they have a legit shot at getting into the playoffs, right? They want to drive interest in the last 2 months of the season as football season is getting underway, and keep everyone engaged rather than getting to like the middle of July, and with there only being a limited number of playoff spots, half of the league saying, well, I guess we're selling everything we've got because we're not making the playoffs this season anyway. So I understand why they will never go backwards, and also the fact that the TV money, even though it's not crazy TV money like it is for football, but still the TV money is significant, and Major League Baseball is not going to shrink the playoff field anytime soon. But they absolutely should, because the playoffs as currently formatted are a total crapshoot, and these short series keep sending mediocre teams into the League Championship Series and the World Series. If it was up to me, if I was commissioner for a day, give me 2 more teams. We don't have enough baseball teams. So give me expansion teams. As I've said before, I think I've called for a team in Puerto Rico, and you can stick someone somewhere else. Nashville could possibly support a team.
Oakland.
Yeah, give Oakland a team back here as they're about to take off. So 2 expansion teams, which would then go to 4 divisions of 4 teams each per league. So you get to 16 teams per league. You get to a total of 32 teams, and then produce 4 division winners per league. Like you play and have an unbalanced schedule where you play amongst yourselves more than you play the other teams in baseball. And that gives you 8 playoff teams, and then play 3 rounds of best of 7 series to produce a champion. Like that's my compromise position. My actual position is just have an American League and a National League. Give me a 7 or a 10 game season. I mean, a best of 11.
10 game season.
A 10 game.
I like it.
I was trying to say series, but give me a best of 11 pennant situation, right? So the Yankees and the Red Sox as the 1 and 2 seeds in the American League then have to play a best of 11 in the race for the pennant.
Cool.
That would be
and
fun.
then give me the same on the National League side, a best of 11, and then give me a World Series that is similarly situated. That would be fucking awesome. And that's only 4 teams in the playoff situation. They'll never do that, obviously, because that's way too fucking much. Nobody actually wants that.
Well, that and like you would only have a few fan bases watching,
Right. Sure. And like baseball is not nearly enough of a national sport anymore. These teams, like Milwaukee's going to have a rating of like fucking 60% of the people watching television tonight were watching the Brewers. But like that's not going to extend across the central part of the country in solidarity with the Brewers. Like people just, it's a regional sport at this point. Your interest is for your local team. But if not that, then give me expansion baseball, give me eight playoff teams, and long series in the playoffs to determine who is going to advance. Am I wrong, Abe?
I'm trying to figure out if that's enough games to make up the current format, because if they're going to leave money on the table, they're going to dismiss your plan. Although it sounds like a good plan as far as the competitive side goes, or like trying to figure out who the worthy winner should be. But since it's a business, you would have to replace the current system with something where they have as many games, that they can sell as many beers and tickets and whatnot. And if you can't do that... You know
what this current playoff format feels like to me? It feels like the NBA in-season tournament. Just fucking utter nonsense. Like, completely arbitrary, and it does not come anywhere near determining who the best team in the league is. Right. Who won the NBA in-season tournament in its debut year, Abe?
The Lakers, I believe.
The Lakers. Did the Lakers do jack or shit in the playoffs?
They did both jack and shit.
Yeah. It just does not relate to who is the best team in baseball. Right. And the World Series always felt like, at the end of the day, here was the best team this year. Even if playoffs are weird, like fundamentally, yes, playoffs are always fucking weird. But the baseball playoffs were as close to a representation of what the regular season was as you could get to, probably.
Right.
And now they no longer relate. It's simply a different sport.
You have talked so much.
All right, moving along, and this can sort of get us into the weekend preview. The news today, or maybe yesterday, was that Auburn has flipped a 5-star quarterback from Notre Dame. Riddle me this, Abe. Why would a person choose to go be coached by Hugh Freeze, where he was previously committed to go to Notre Dame for a long time, and then something in the last 2 or 3 weeks has happened to convince him that what he needs to do is to go to the loveliest village on the plains down there in Auburn and work for that guy.
The only thing that makes sense, the only thing that I can think of that makes sense is money.
Dump trucks of money.
Money makes sense. I would do it for money.
Yeah.
Just absolute bulldozers rolling into his front yard, pushing NIL money.
Right.
I cannot fathom the promises that have been made to this kid to get him to flip.
Hope he signs something.
After the last couple of weeks. Yeah, he better have put his name on the line.
Oh, yeah,
which
this is
dotted.
no verbal nothing.
Yeah. It's the only rational explanation for why this kid would have flipped is because he has been promised some truly
he's being rational,
obscene and ostentatious things for making his decision to go to Auburn.
One other possibility, although I think the leader in the clubhouse is the money, but you have singled out Notre Dame head coach Freeman for his physique. Do you think that he was like lifting weights and he missed a call to sell the quarterback? Like he was too busy lifting weights and he missed a call and this kid transferred.
Too much time looking in the mirror in the weight room and not enough time
so
sending TikToks to the recruits.
When you said the coach with the body, I thought that maybe the player would be intimidated and want to go play with the old guy.
Oh, that's right.
My brain went to, I don't want to play for an attractive coach.
It is deeply confusing to me that a person would decide after everything that's gone on at Auburn for the last month that's where he wants to go play football.
You know,
he knows if he goes to Auburn, they need a quarterback.
I'm sure. I mean, if this kid's as well touted as he is, he'll probably start at Notre Dame too if he went there. I do wonder, as far as decision making, like during that Georgia-Alabama game and other big games, they have like a bunch of recruits. Like both teams will have like, hey, just come to the game and watch. I wonder, do these kids, are they making decisions based on the result of that particular game? Because it seems kind of silly to decide.
They're probably not on the result, although I do remember, I forget what year it was, when Alabama lost to LSU, and they had a bunch of recruits there, and the LSU players sort of like taunted the recruits. And we're like, because they were like, come play with us.
Pete Alonso just dropped a pop foul.
He said, fuck.
4 feet from the fence that he could have made this catch to end the threat in the 7th inning, and it just bonered right off the side of his glove. And there's a Brewers fan right behind him who literally points and laughs in his face as it happens. I'm going to have to GIF that and make sure it's in the show note. It's going to take me a minute, but it's going to be worth it. That was fantastic.
You should make a note of when it was. Yeah. You can find it.
Well, bottom of the 7th, Billiam Contreras at the plate.
Okay.
Totally fine.
By the way, Lori, to your point, didn't that exact same thing happen Miami, Florida? Wasn't there something this year?
I'm sure that's not the only time.
But that happened.
It's just the time I remember. Yeah. Where it's not like they're making the decision that day. It's just they're bringing them to the school to show them,
like the atmosphere,
all the shit.
Yeah.
And
it's funny. Abe said the atmosphere. Lori said all the shit, and the actual explanation is just young blondes. That's what they're
crowd.
showing them.
They're not all into blondes.
Okay.
I don't know.
It's definitely not just young blondes that are what's going on.
All the shit.
All right. That'll be enough of the, we'll call that the WJS Sports News Bag. Wrap that up. I was going to go through and come up with sports adjacent question of the week, but I knew that I would rant about baseball for too long, so I didn't. And then I was also going to do a pop quiz hot shot, but the pop quiz hot shot that I was going to do was going to be about the Deep South's oldest rivalry, and then I had to acknowledge that it was everything that I kept coming up with was nothing that I knew at all, and so it felt shitty of me to be like, hey, Abe, fucking figure this out, that I spent an hour trying to figure out would be a clever
what trivia
way of...
is.
I know, but like, it should at least be plausible that this was a piece of information that is ready to hand for someone. When was the
last time Auburn won?
Right, so, for example, Abe, when was the last time? Pop quiz hotshot. glories. When was the last time Auburn won a game against the Georgia Bulldogs?
I would be making a guess. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Well, make the guess. Well, you're shy about this. You not shy about live betting the fucking game.
2017?
Oh, nailed it. November 11th, 2017.
Yeah, we lost to them before we played them in the SEC championship. We lost to them that year.
Correct. We lost 40-17 and then had to play them again 3 weeks later, at which point we beat them 28-7. And that was the last time also that Auburn scored more than 20 points against the Georgia Bulldogs. Since then, they've scored 7, 10, 14, 6, 10, 10, and 20 last year. Quite a run we've had in the Deep South's oldest rivalry. Not yet equaling the longest such run. I think we are one away from tying the longest run we ever had. In 1923 through 31 was 9 straight wins against
I hate
Auburn.
Auburn most of all.
So, yeah, we need 2 more to tie the longest Georgia winning streak against Auburn. But anyway, let's just move right into the best game in every time slot. This is the reason everybody tunes in to the Thursday CI Balls is because we tell you what to watch over the course of the next 48 hours
It's
or
like
so.
the
Starting
sports TV guide. That's what you should watch.
Well, if you can come up with a name for this that is more pun related to cast iron or balls or brains, then we can rename the show. But Sports TV Guide ain't doing it, Abe. So I'm gonna
What
need
do
to
you
workshop
call it,
that.
though?
Nothing. He's trying to rename the segment. He's got to come stronger than something else, or than what I've already come up with.
I think he already just did.
It's currently the best game in every time slot. That's the
I think
bar.
Abe's is catchier. What are we on, week 6?
I used to think that a really good blog would be you go to the blog when you're not sure what to watch, and it just tells you what to watch, right? Like whether it's live on television or whether it's streaming. Like preferably it's only on the streaming services that most people have. So it's like it's either Netflix or Max or Hulu, and then it's live television. And it's like, okay, I don't want to, if I have to, like the worst thing in the world is spending 45 minutes. Everybody acknowledges this. Spending 45 minutes flipping through all of your fucking channels.
No, you do that, though.
I know.
I think it's the worst. You do it, though.
It's deeply unsatisfying.
I don't do. Why do you do it if you think it's the worst thing?
Because what you know is that when you land on something, and it's like, oh, I guess I could watch this like Law and Order marathon on AMC or something, but like, what am I missing out on?
Nothing.
I guarantee you, there's something better to be watching than
no. Oh my God.
Charmed on
just put
on
something
AMC.
on.
Whatever. The point here being that this is like I always thought that a good product would be just a blog that says, okay, it's 9:00 on a Wednesday. What is the literally best thing? Like, what is the best thing that you could flip to right this moment? And like that would be.
Yeah, that made more sense when it was live TV.
Right,
we
when
were
it was
watching.
only live TV. It's sort of gone away now. I missed my opportunity.
You did.
That's
you
the
didn't
sort of thing.
do it.
That's the $1 million idea that gets ruined as soon as Netflix kills the DVD service and goes streaming only. Anyway, it's time for the best game in every time slot, starting with our bonus Friday night game. Once again, this one is worth watching only relative to the rest of the weekend's action, and also for sort of narrative enjoyment because it involves UNLV.
That's the whole enjoyment.
And also that the transfer, what's his fucking name at Syracuse?
McCord, right? Kyle.
Yeah,
McCord.
Kyle McCord from Ohio State, who seems like he's going to be pretty good eventually. But Syracuse goes on the road as 6.5-point underdogs, traveling out to Las Vegas to play number 25 UNLV with a game that has an over/under of 58.5 points, which should hopefully make it an entertaining affair for your Friday evening if you're looking for sports entertainment tomorrow night. So that's the game to watch.
Well, there's also the other one.
I think there are 4 games.
Michigan State at Oregon is the other one.
On Friday night?
That's where I have it, yeah.
Are there 2 teams ranked at 25? Did I just see that?
Yeah, it was fucking
Michigan
confusing
State,
me
Oregon.
earlier too, Abe, because if you go to the AP Top 25 at the official AP website,
Website.
at the official AP website, where they list such things, it just ranks UNLV as the 25th team in the country. Texas A&M appears nowhere, anywhere on the page. And yet, according to The Athletic and other sports publications, they are also the 25th ranked team, according to the Associated Press.
That is bizarre.
It's voted upon, right?
Yes, no, I recognize that two teams can tie, but if you go and look at AP.com,
Yeah, I believe
at
you.
the list, Texas A&M appears
It's
nowhere.
like they didn't write it into the code to have
On
to.
the ESPN app, it has number 25 Texas A&M, and then like blank, but right underneath them is UNLV.
Yeah.
They both have the same number of points in their little formula.
Anyway, UNLV's backup quarterback maybe is better than the guy who insisted that he needed $100,000 in order to stick with the team, and then has since said, "I'm taking a red shirt." And apparently, a bunch of the players on that team then went on to post on social media, like, "Finally, we're getting our dude." So I'm not sure that Mr. Sluka was terribly well liked inside the Rebels locker room there. Is it Rebels? What are the UNLV? What
I
is
think
their,
so, yeah. UNLV
you could just
Rebels.
say Rebels.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's going to.
Anyway, Kyle McCord against Matthew Sluka's backup might be worth checking out on Friday night. And then we move on to our Saturday slate of games. We've got number 9 Mizzou plus 2.5 at number 25, also number 25, Texas A&M.
It's very exciting. It's so early. It's a good way to start the day.
Yeah, Mizzou is, I mean, it's a good way to start the day in a weekend that is filled with just absolute trash in terms of
I don't know.
the college football offerings. Mizzou's coming off a bye after a near disaster against Vanderbilt, and in order to maintain their legitimacy, really needs this win. They don't have a ton of other big-time games on their schedule this year.
They don't have any big games.
They have Alabama, but
Oh, yeah.
this is the other thing about these massive conferences is that you're going to find that like I think we're going to end up getting some very silly championship games in the SEC and in the Big Ten in particular, where like it just so happens that in some years Ohio State and Michigan and Oregon have to play these awful schedules where they have to play each other a bunch, and then they all have to play like whatever up-and-comer is good that year, like a Wisconsin or a Penn State or a Michigan State or something. And then like Iowa State ends up not having to play anybody and goes undefeated in conference
It's very
play.
exciting.
That's very stupid. Like I imagine that they're going to fix this by expanding the playoff and killing conference championship games. In all likelihood. But like there's an opportunity now in the next couple of seasons for some very silly teams to end up making the conference championship games. And you could argue that Mizzou and A&M are both sort of those teams this year, where because Texas, Alabama, and Georgia kind of all have to play much tougher schedules, including against each other, you're going to end up in a situation where like some rando team goes undefeated in the conference and sneaks into the championship game. But Mizzou cannot afford to lose this game, and really neither can Texas A&M. But Mizzou played Boston College and Vandy way too close, and it's time to show that they actually belong in the playoff conversation or fuck off. And I hope, frankly, full disclosure, that they do, because it could be very profitable for me, potentially, if they make the playoff. But Texas A&M nearly lost to Arkansas last week and really only has LSU and Texas left on their schedule in terms of serious opponents. And it's not clear right now if their quarterback, is Marcel Reed, is still just filling in for an injured Connor Weigman, or if the coaches down there have decided that they prefer
You got
Reed,
Stetson Bennett.
who is much more versatile and mobile quarterback
Stetson Bennett.
than the pro-style Weigman.
By the way, if Mizzou lost, this would do serious damage to your parlay. You don't have this game as a loss for Mizzou?
No, I've got Mizzou winning this game if they're going to make the playoffs. I can see them losing to Alabama and still having a justifiable case for getting in, but especially now that they've almost lost to BC and almost lost to Vandy, like they cannot afford a second loss on their schedule. And like an argument can be made that if they just keep winning these close games against lesser opponents, and then get blown out by Alabama. Even a one-loss Mizzou probably wouldn't belong in the playoff over like a one-loss. I mean, I don't know.
Right.
You come up with insert any team here from another conference or even from the SEC. How do you justify putting him in?
You would justify it in, like, if they keep winning, they're already ninth, and so they would hover around the 6-7 spot. And
the AP top 25, we're going to find out here in short order, the AP top 25 is fucking utter nonsense right now. Michigan is ranked 11th, and they're a road underdog against a mediocre Washington team. Like, what are we talking about with Mizzou at number 9? Nonsense. Although I will say, based on what I've seen that Eli Drinkowitz say down there at Mizzou this week, he is like supremely confident about their situation right now, which I don't know if he's just putting on a show or if he's just an obnoxious type as it is.
Oh, but he's likable.
I don't know. He's doing some stuff this week. Anyway, second TV, and I'm only pointing to the second TV as something to do at noon because that's the format, not because this is a particularly great game or that there are any
the
great
UVA game.
Second TV games worth watching. I'm not going to go with the parochial recommendations around here. It has to be an interesting game to people beyond our fine little college hamlet here. Yes, you could put on the UVA game if you so desire. But most people don't want to do that because UVA is not at all a good football team.
So
Instead,
1.5 point line.
Sure, but just because a game is close doesn't mean it's good.
That can mean that.
Who are they even playing?
Boston College.
Yeah, don't watch BC UVA. That sounds like a bad time. I'd rather watch the women's basketball matchup between those two teams probably. SMU. Abe's a big fan of the Mustangs at the moment. SMU +7 on the road at Louisville. Number 22 Louisville in a game that has a over-under of 56.5 points. As I said, there is no good second game. But if you really need something else to watch, this is the one probably. SMU lost a close game to BYU and then thoroughly dominated TCU and Florida State. They play Pitt and BC in November. But if they win this game, they've got a pretty good shot at playing in the ACC conference title game if they can avoid a weird loss, like such as to Pitt or BC, who are not good teams. Louisville lost to some surprisingly close game against Notre Dame last week and still has Miami and Clemson in conference play and therefore absolutely cannot afford to lose this game, cannot afford to be looking ahead or anything like that if they expect to stay in contention for either the ACC championship game or, in theory, an at-large berth in the playoff. But it could be an entertaining game. Louisville seems halfway decent, and SMU has put up a ton of points recently, so it might be worth checking out. Moving to 3:30, the only game that really matters to me this weekend. If I miss everything else, it'll be just fine because I have to watch Georgia play against Auburn. I do not care for Auburn.
He doesn't care for Auburn. Not a parochial situation you're doing there?
No, of course not. Although I must acknowledge it probably isn't a game for everybody. Auburn is a bad team.
Auburn sucks. Auburn sucks.
Probably better than Mississippi State in the conference, and probably not better than a whole lot of other teams in the conference.
Auburn sucks. Auburn sucks.
I guess Vandy, you'd just have to say, but I don't know that I would. I don't know that I would bet on Auburn.
I wouldn't talk
right now.
that much shit about Auburn right before we play Auburn. Like, just tame it down.
I don't care for Auburn. He doesn't care for Auburn.
Hugh Freeze remains an asshole, and it looks like they're going to change up their quarterback situation away from Peyton Thorne and go with a transfer from Liberty, or a kid who was committed to Liberty and then came with Hugh Freeze when he decided to become Auburn's head coach. His name is Hank something. It's Hank Brown, maybe. I don't know. I just made that up, but that might be close. But they might be changing things up because, as we've established many times before, Hugh Freeze is looking for a guy who won't throw it to the other team. And maybe Hank is that guy. I have this feeling that anything but a thorough whipping of Auburn will feel like a disappointment.
Right.
Yeah.
Not just to me, but to the Georgia people at large.
Yeah.
Am I right about that?
Yes.
We need to take it out on Auburn.
Yeah, I mean, after that Alabama game, you want to come strong and beat a bad team. You should be able to beat them comfortably.
Yeah.
Still, I had no doubt in my mind going into last year's game that we were a much better team than Auburn. And they kept it close. That was a scary fucking game.
Yeah, that was the game we almost lost, except for Brock Bowers and Carson Beck throwing to Brock Bowers.
But that's also the only, one of two close games that we've had against them going back to 2017.
Yeah.
Like dominant 42-10, 34-10, 27-6. And then in 2019, it was 21-14. But then 27-10, 28-7. Like we have thoroughly owned Auburn in the Kirby years. To be fair, we've thoroughly owned everyone except Alabama in the Kirby years. But I can't get around the fact that, like, it would not surprise me if this ends up being a sort of weird, ugly game that's like, I don't know, 24-10 or something.
Yeah.
Like that is, it's not as dominant as we want it to be, even if it feels like it's never quite out of hand.
It's at home, though.
Yeah, it's at home. It's homecoming. It's Auburn. I have no doubt about Kirby's willingness and ability to get them fired up for such a game. Like I don't worry about that at all. But who knows if things don't look great, that's 3 straight games where you have to say, man, I don't know about this team.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, as much as we thought we learned about in the second half there about their ability to come back from utter humiliation. After Kentucky, after the first half against Alabama, if we don't come out and thoroughly own a bad Auburn team, what does that say? Not just about not about the program, but about this team. And I think it will very clearly say, if it's not already clear to us, that this is not a team that's as good as the last couple. Right. It's not as good as the ones that we've been used to, and it'll be a bummer. Now, it won't say anything about our playoff chances in all likelihood, right? But it will hopefully, like at that point, it's like if we don't destroy Auburn, who I don't care for.
He doesn't care for Auburn.
Then would you be surprised if we lose 2 of the 3 remaining big games on our schedule?
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
Right. And that's a real concern. This should tell us like how Georgia should play, because like maybe there is going to be like an Alabama hangover. Like we should have won that game at the end, and we started slow, blah blah blah, and now you have a team that's not very good. So what's the motivation? You're going to beat them anyway, so it'll just be a margin thing.
I heard this expressed once or twice this week by sports talkers. If Beck doesn't throw that interception at the end of that game, and instead on the next play we go for 6, right? And we're down by 1 with mere seconds remaining in the game. Does Kirby go for 2 and try to win it outright on the road in Tuscaloosa, or do you just kick the extra point and play in overtime?
Whoa, that's a good.
I don't think he goes for 2.
You don't think he does? Do you think he should have, or would?
No.
Or should he in that event?
No. We failed on several 2-point attempts. We had shown
but what were
that
we?
we're
4
scoring
for 5
now.
or 5 for 5 on 4th downs in that game, right? Like when we needed to have it, we had it.
Right, and college football's overtime rules. I wonder if I don't know. Maybe you do play for overtime and see how that goes. Like it's not like the NFL where even though
that's the thing. No, that's what I'm saying. Like we've proven in the second half of that game, we can move the ball, we can score points.
Right.
So what we've not proven in that game is that we can score 2 of them.
I think in the abstract, you absolutely go for 2 in that situation because you've been thoroughly humiliated. What moral victory is going to come out of this game has already come out of this game. You've already proven to whoever needs it to be proven to. In a weird way, while it's better to win,
You're in a weird mood tonight. Keep going.
In a weird way, it almost doesn't matter whether you're successful or not in terms of the way that people think about you, right? Like you prefer to win, obviously. You'd rather not lose. But in some bizarre way, it just doesn't matter whether or not you're successful with that 2-point conversion. I don't think anybody would have
But
faulted
why
him.
is that true only if there's a 2-point conversion? Because that's what I've been saying all week, that like the coming back from being down.
Because you fell just short. And if you
But you would have fallen just short going for 2 points and failing.
losing by a point is different than losing by a touchdown. It just is. If you get to that point where you can go for 2 and then you do, you're saying something about yourself and about your team that you're otherwise not when you don't have that opportunity to. As I said, that's my opinion in the abstract. I think that you go for 2 there if you score the touchdown in an attempt to win the game. In reality, I don't know that I want to put everything on Carson Beck against an Alabama defense that the referees will simply refuse to throw a flag on. Like that, like granted, you only have to get 2 yards, but you're probably throwing the ball, right? Or you're rolling Beck out and giving him the option to run it in, but you're probably not handing it off to your running game at that point. And like, do we think that the yellow piece of laundry is coming out of the ref's pocket? If at any point, like I know it's coming out if somebody sets a pick on the among the wide receivers, right? I know they're throwing that flag and backing you up 15 yards, and now you definitely are kicking the extra point. But I don't think that anybody's getting called for defensive holding or for defensive pass interference. I think they could fucking tackle everybody, and they're not going to throw that flag in Tuscaloosa. And maybe that's just conspiracy theory nonsense, but I've watched a lot of SEC
It's
football
hard not to feel that way
over the last 20
when
years.
you watch a lot of Alabama football.
Yeah.
And now the Chiefs as well.
Not just Alabama football, but like SEC football, the home team, the last play of the game. How often are you going to see a defensive penalty called? And it's not very often. But yeah, I think that the right thing to do there is to go for 2 and fucking win the game and get the fuck out of there. Like, just sprint to the fucking buses. Just get away as quickly as possible. All right, let's move on to the rest of the weekend's action. Not that there are any good games to talk about. The second TV while the Georgia-Auburn game is on. God damn it. The Mets have a base runner now in the top of the 9th. 2 base runners, first and third. They're 1 out with a 2-run lead for the Brewers. Getting interesting there. It's that fucking Brandon Nimmo again, making shit happen. I hate that fucking Brandon Nimmo. All right. Rutgers +7 at Nebraska. Rutgers has close wins over Virginia Tech and Washington. Beating Nebraska on the road would be a big deal, especially with really just USC on the road and home against Illinois left on their schedule in terms of major games. Nebraska had no problems with Purdue last week after losing to Illinois a couple of Fridays ago. And they've still got Ohio State, USC, and Iowa on their schedule. So they have a bunch of losses left in all likelihood on their schedule and could really use this win against Rutgers. Not a lot of faith in Rutgers, despite the big win against Washington last week. Do the odds makers have with them catching a touchdown on the road? But that's the 4 o'clock second game. 7:45, the evening is officially underway. Turn on UCF, the University of Central Florida, -2.5 at the Swamp against the Gators. This
Florida, the underdog at home.
is the greatest thing that could possibly happen. That a non-Miami, non-FSU, non-Florida Gator team is favored in the Swamp. I would love to know. I didn't look this up.
But it's not only that, it's a formerly Group of 5 team, right?
When was the last time a non-Miami, non-Florida State, and non-Florida Gator team was favored in the Swamp? Yeah. And I would be surprised if it's ever happened. Like, that's got to be thoroughly unlikely.
That is true because...
Especially... Go ahead.
Because of what Lori said. Like, I mean, what UCF just became a big thing. Like, so, like, what other team would have been in that position?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, USF has had a couple of fun years through the years, but yeah, not a lot of teams would even think about.
Wow.
Yeah, bizarre. And I think if Billy Napier is going to get fired in season, it's bound to be after losing to UCF, right? Like at home against UCF. Like if it's going to happen, it's going to happen this weekend. UCF was thoroughly dismantled by Colorado last week, as not predicted by me, and still has games against currently ranked Iowa State, BYU, and Utah on their schedule, and also has to play Arizona, Arizona State, and West Virginia. Holy fucking shit. Pete Alonso, speaking of the wretched Gators, Pete fucking Alonso just hit a 3-run home run.
What?
They're
up 3-2?
To give the Mets a lead in the top of the 9th inning. In what could have been, Abe, it could have been his last at-bat as a New York Met.
Wow.
And instead, he hits a 3-run tater to the right field wall. What appeared to be something of a laser beam. I only just caught it out of the corner of my eye, but holy shit.
That's remarkable.
Here's the pitch. Swinging a fly ball to right field. Pretty well hit. Frelick back at the wall. He jumps. It's gone. He did it. He did it. Pete Alonso with the most memorable home run of his career. Pumps his fist as he rounds second. It's a 3-run homer. He's given the Mets a 3-2 lead. They all pour out of the dugout. Alonso on his way to home plate. They're waiting for him. He hits the plate. He is first congratulated by Nimmo, hugged by Lindor. There are a dozen Mets waiting for him outside the dugout. Pete Alonso keeps this fairy tale season going with the fairy tale swing of his career. 3-2 New York.
There are going to be little kids, 10, 12, 13-year-old kids, who never forget this. And they're awful people. I'm sorry. They're Mets fans. It's bad for them.
What if they're the ones who are sad? Don't talk about children you don't know.
The only bright side here is that I think that Edwin Diaz is well spent at this point already in this game, and they're going to have to come up with somebody else to try to get 3 outs in the bottom of the 9th. Anyway, like I was saying, UCF has got a gnarly schedule, and it's a little weird to say this is one of their last chances for a win. But like they could legitimately lose 5 out of 6 of the games that I've mentioned and dominate Florida, and that's just funny. Also, it would be very bad for Florida to lose to UCF, which is extra true because Florida then has Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and Florida State
needs this as worse
to end the season. Like Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, Florida State, maybe Florida State. Who else? Is there another win in there for this Florida team?
You know, earlier, Bob, you were mentioning how like the way that the conferences will work out, you'll have some goofy conference title games. Like if let's say Florida was good this year and they had to go through this gauntlet of a schedule, like they would be hurt by the schedule just based on the way the calendar works. Like if there were
right, they could go 5-3.
We have that schedule.
If they went 5-3 in conference as an awesome team, you wouldn't be surprised.
Right? Yeah.
Based on this schedule.
That's what that's what Georgia's situation is.
Right, which is what's concerning about the fact that Georgia has not looked awesome for the last couple of weeks. Like you're like, man, maybe we're just not good enough to hold up against this.
Maybe not.
Incredibly
We'll find
gnarly
out.
Schedule we have. This fucking Brewers guy just backed his ass up into the fence instead of going back there and trying to leap for it. Not that he would have caught it, but god damn it. Oh man, look at all these happy Mets people at not Shea Stadium at Citi Field. Disgusting. All right, second TV, 7:30, number 10 Michigan, plus 2.5 points on the road at Washington, a 41.5 point over/under, a defensive struggle if ever there was going to be one. Why is the number 10 team in the country, Abe, catching points against a team that just lost 5 days ago to Rutgers?
Is this not the national title game?
It sounds like a riddle. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, maybe it's like some sort of they're trying to exact some revenge, and the Vegas people are factoring that in.
But isn't that crazy that it doesn't even feel like a national championship rematch at all?
Because Washington sucks this year, and Michigan
well,
appears
and
to suck
because
also.
none of the coaches and players are there anymore.
Also, they're not
because both of them don't.
They're favorites against a top 10 team, Bob. They're not that bad.
This is Abe presenting the perfect argument in the YouTube comment section. That's Abe direct from the YouTube comment section with the argument we all needed to hear. Michigan barely survived late runs by Minnesota and USC to win both of their last two games, oddly 27-24. They still have to play Illinois, Oregon, Indiana, and Ohio State. That's at least 3 losses, probably. So they could really use this win just so that they don't have an embarrassing final win total. Washington still has to play Iowa, Indiana, USC, Penn State, and Oregon, which is also a rough run of things. Neither can really afford to lose this game. Maybe it'll be entertaining in the trenches, I guess. A couple of good defenses. I don't know. I hope Will Rogers takes that defense apart out there in Washington. That would be fun. 10 o'clock. There are no good late games. There's only 1 or 2 of them anyway. Don't bother trying to watch more college football after 10
Miami
o'clock.
at Cal.
Don't watch that.
What is this? What are they? Coke, woke versus Coke?
Yeah. Coke on the road against woke. Whereas the reality of the situation is it's just all those kids are on a bunch of Adderall.
Right.
That's the only thing that's going on the field. Anyway, no good late games. I guess if you desperately need football, you can watch what Lori's talking about there with Miami against Cal. But the good news is it's October now. And so if you want to watch some spooky Halloween stuff, Max has got a whole slate of stuff that is rotated onto the streaming service on October 1st or 2nd. The original It miniseries from television is now on Max. Both of the recent, relatively speaking, It movies, I think 2017 was the first one, and then the second one with Bill Hader and the other grown-ups, both of which are perfectly
Aren't
good.
they in both? No?
No, not really. The way that they split up, the book, of course, jumps back and forth in time. The movie does the first movie as kids and then the second movie as grown-ups.
Okay.
Both of which were perfectly good. The first one, I thought the one with the kids was better. The first It movie was better. And then there's a new and apparently quite bad Salem's Lot adaptation, which was, I think that was King's second or third book way back when. But this
is not about sports.
I know, I'm saying. Other stuff to watch. It's spooky season, so you can turn on the spooky stuff after the football is over. Salem's Lot was made like 3 or 4 years ago or something, and it's just been like sitting on the shelf there, and Max is finally debuting it. And then Dr. Sleep and Misery also both coming to Max this weekend. So that's just the Stephen King stuff. And then all of the first 5 Nightmare on Elm Street movies are also on Max now. And now the Mets are up 4-2. They won't stop. This is annoying. But anyway, watch some spooky Halloween stuff instead of the 10 o'clock games. Abe, any recommendations for what people should watch besides football this weekend?
No, those are all good. I mean, yeah, I have no recommendations.
Off the top of your head, Abe, give me fucking anything. The West Wing. Did the West Wing ever do a spooky Halloween episode? I'll bet
Sure they did.
No. Although I do wonder.
Yes, they did. They must have done a Halloween episode.
I wonder, does the Simpsons still have the treehouse thing? Like, I have stopped
I don't know
watching
if they do
the
new
recent-
one.
Do they do Treehouse of Terror anymore?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't
Treehouse
know.
of Horror. I'm sure that they do.
They must. Although
They are still making horror movies.
the Simpsons, it felt like they started pushing back the start of the debut of the new season, like
That's true.
past Halloween. So, like, are they even making new ones right now? I don't know. All right, let's move into the CIB 2024 Pick'em contest. We will go through our picks of the week. Just updating or reminding you of the current scores. It is Abe as the caboose with 55 points. Lori at 62. Cousin Steve at 72. He picks up the 2-point win on Monday night to move to 72 points. And I have 125 points out in front. First, Cousin Steve has got Boston College catching a 1.5 here in Charlottesville. He's got San Jose State, I believe, making their debut in the CIB 2024 Pick'em game. San Jose State as a 6.5-point favorite at home against Nevada. He's got Air Force. They are catching 9.5 points. He's calling for the outright win by the Eagles, the Air Force, something. I don't know. Over Navy, which would be something because right now Army-Navy is potentially setting up for not just a situation where they're the two best teams in their conference, which I think they're both undefeated at the moment. But Army and Navy might play in their conference championship game, which would be a first because they have not been in the same conference before, or maybe that conference hasn't had a championship game. I don't know. They could play in their conference championship game and then the next week turn around and play the Army-Navy game at 3:30 on CBS,
Would be
which
so
would be
fun.
very weird.
Yeah.
But anyway, Steve's got Air Force, the straight-up underdog winner. And then NFL-wise, he's taking the Vikings minus 2.5 and the Bengals plus 2.5. That's the Vikings against the Jets and the Bengals catching points against the Ravens. Lori, why don't you go next?
Oh, okay. I hope Syracuse wins.
Why?
Because it would be nice.
See, I'm a big UNLV guy now because of what happened
Okay.
with that Matthew Sluka.
Well,
so-
I won't be so sad, but you know, it'd be cool for Syracuse.
All right.
What do I have? USC covering.
Southern California minus 8.5 over the
Yeah.
Minnesota Golden
They
Gophers.
can beat Minnesota by more than that.
If USC cannot travel to the Minnesota Golden Gophers and win by more than 8.5 points, why did they join the Big Ten?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it
you
was a
know,
mistake
come
if you
on.
can't cover that number.
Although is their quarterback concussed? Maybe I don't know. Cal, what am I saying? That they're going to cover,
Cal plus
The-
10.5.
which
Yep.
you changed,
I didn't change. The line moved from minus
but you
12
didn't
and a half
change it
to
here on the spreadsheet.
because I like to see the progression of the line as the week
I
goes on.
did the thing, and then Bob's watching as I do it, and he goes, "Move to 10.5. That okay?" And then just like typed it in. I was like, "Well, guess so."
You were welcome to pick another game. You didn't have to
I don't want
live
to.
with that.
I think finally UNC gets it back. They almost got it back last week. This is the week when Pittsburgh comes favored.
It's time for Mac Brown to go, right? Like he
Yeah.
doesn't need
Yes.
Yeah.
He's had
yes.
enough
No.
of
No.
this.
I think they'll lose more games this year. I just think that like they really need to win something. And I guess I pick Florida because fuck it.
Fair enough.
Florida.
Abe,
Fuck. Come on.
Yeah.
Abe, what you got?
All right, so I'm off the Lane Kiffin Ole Miss bandwagon.
Oh.
I am now on the SMU bandwagon. I got SMU beating straight up Louisville this week.
I think we can say you're not on the bandwagon until you've picked them twice. Like right now,
no.
you're just you're checking out the bandwagon. You're like, hey, what's going on over there?
Yeah. What are you guys doing?
I need a spot because I was on this other thing and Lance Kiffin sucks now. So what do you guys got going on? And then next week, if they do it for you, you can say officially you're on the bandwagon. But for now, I think you're just checking things out.
You're like walking alongside the wagon.
Sizing them. All right, then I have Clemson 14.5 against Florida State. Florida State sucks. That sucking should continue this weekend, right? Easy.
If they get blown out by Clemson, how does Matt M. Norvell, how does M. Norvell keep his job?
It's still Mike.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why he still has his job except for all the money that he's owed. I mean,
It's the money.
It'd be no shame to lose to
And
Clemson.
because they can't get anyone, you'd have to have an interim.
By the way, first runner gets on the bottom of the ninth against David Peterson, who is notably not the Mets closer and has 0 career saves. So
Why would they start? Why would they?
Let's go, Brew Crew.
Did they ever cut back to that guy that was mocking the Mets outfielder?
No, as far as I know, I'm the only one who enjoyed it appropriately, which is why I need to turn it into a good GIF.
All right, so the next pick, so Auburn at Georgia, this line was 24.5. It shifted to 22, and even with the shift, I'm still sticking with Auburn. I'm concerned about this game. I'm anticipating a hangover. Georgia, unless they're compelled to keep pace, they have a constipated offense. I'm assuming they're going to, like you described, 24-10, 31-13, some goofy score like that. I think Georgia wins, but it's going to be weird. So Auburn plus 22.
I'm staying the hell away from that game. I don't like. I have no idea. Nothing would surprise me except
Well,
us losing.
yes,
to
yeah,
them.
that would be
Like,
surprising. Yeah.
That would
You
be
said
surprising.
that last week.
Yeah, as is well documented. How many times have we seen? You've just never seen a Kirby team really come out and get thoroughly owned
I just
in every possible regard. Like it just
yeah.
weird. All right, you got a couple more, I think.
Boston College straight up against that Charlottesville team. And then tonight, I mean, we'll find out. I'll find out by tonight what happens. But I got the Bucks beating the Falcons. This seems like a
Bucks are up 24-17 at the half. Against the
wow.
Falcons.
That's a high-scoring game. So this I think is like a maximum 40 points here. There's no, I get 40 for 40. I think. I mean, look at it. You see any flaws?
It's a big number,
Yeah.
Abe. I don't see any obvious losses there. So yeah, you might be good. All right, my games. I also am riding the Southern Methodist University Mustangs. SMU plus 6.5 at Louisville, but I don't want those points. Neither does Abe. I'm taking SMU outright. I'm also taking Mizzou plus, or no, not plus. I'm taking Mizzou straight up. They are catching 1.5 points on the road, but I want them as the road underdogs to win outright. I've got Washington at home minus the 2.5 points against Michigan. I think they get it done there. I don't see the Michigan offense doing anything. The fucking Mets have just advanced to the National League Division Series, and the Brewers are going home. I mean, I've always liked Francisco Lindor, so I'm comfortable with Frankie Lindor being happy. But all of the rest of them, I'm feeling a little nauseous at the moment. It's not good. All right, I said Washington minus 2.5. West Virginia is catching 3.5 points on the road at Oklahoma State. I'm taking them straight up as the road underdog. I think it is foolish to bet on Oklahoma State to do anything. I think Mike Gundy is a total fucking wild card, and you just never fucking know what's going to happen when Mike Gundy is involved. But I'll take West Virginia here. And then Kansas plus 3.5 on the road at Arizona State. I'm taking Kansas again as the straight-up road underdog. No points necessary. That's 10, 20, 30, 45 points is my maximum this week.
It speaks to your lead that you have four underdogs winning this weekend. That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm taking a big swing this week just because I feel fairly comfortable in my lead. If one of you bums puts 30 or 40 on me and I only score like 5 points, things will change dramatically in how I pick games moving forward.
This was an oversight by me, but speaking of bandwagons, I was on the Sam Darnold bandwagon with the Vikings. I think you had them last week as well. You would think that they can easily beat the bum Jets with old man Rodgers, but I did not pick them. But I'll be interested to see.
I didn't pick them because first of all, I don't like that number. I don't like that they're calling that a coin flip game when it looks like the Vikings are much better than the Jets based on results so far this year. So that tells me that says stay away.
Okay.
When a road team is catching just 2.5 points, that tells me that nobody really knows what's going to happen in that game. And so I don't know any better. I haven't actually watched Vikings football. I've seen some Twitter highlights of Vikings football. I'm not about to put my reputation at stake by actually betting on them. That's not going to happen. All right. Speaking of putting one's reputation at stake, Jimmy Carter is currently dialing the phone and trying to get us live here. It's fucking way past his bedtime down there in Plains.
Over the top of 100 already.
Let's go live to Plains for Jimmy Carter's Lock of the Week.
Hello to my dear friends at Cast Iron Balls, and also to Abe. I don't have my usual reserve of energy to put into this week's Lock of the Week, as I've spent the last few days in a mild stupor after an overnight rager to celebrate my 100th birthday. I even had a bite of cake that my nephew Jason kindly pre-chewed for me before I was wheeled outside to watch a military jets fly by overhead in my honor. Oh, how prayed that those jets would just drop 15,000 pounds of ordnance on these ancient bones and send me to my reward once and for all. Alas, the Lord keeps me going another day, The spiteful bastard. Another day, and another week of college football games, at least. But would you look at these games? What a dreadful, shameful array of so-called contests they've given us this week. If not for gambling, you have no reason to watch any of this hot nonsense this weekend, including especially the Deep South's oldest rivalry. I'm just going to pick one at random. Here we go. UCLA is traveling to Happy Valley to take on Penn State and catching 27.5 points. Just get your money on the Bruins with all those points and go to something else with your day. Pick some apples. Find a stray cat and feed it to an automated teller machine. Live a life for Christ's sake. You don't have to watch these awful games just because the sickos say you should. Take a walk, read a book, build a house. Demand more of this interminable lifetime. And Abe, I made it to 100. You bitch. How do you like them sweet potatoes? As always, enjoy the games with good food and drink, and most importantly, good company. May God bless this great nation and this great podcast. Until next week, this is Jimmy from Plains Podcast Eyeballs.
It's getting dark down there in Plains. Sounds like Jimmy. Jimmy doesn't
Well,
sound.
it hasn't fucking stopped raining here, so.
Yeah.
You know, when they wheeled him out to see that military procession or whatever that was going on, the flyover, I don't know if he actually had his eyes open at any point. Like the little bit that I saw, like somebody was whispering in his ear where he was. You know, situational awareness, like you're still alive, just doing a little photo op, and something's happening overhead. But don't worry, you're still here.
I want you to, like, imagine like you don't want to do this. Obviously, this is not something that you want to do. This is highly dangerous. Put a child in a large garbage bag, like a large plastic garbage bag that you might have out on the side of the street, full of leaves for the city to come take off of your hands, something like that, and then cinch it shut so that there's only a small hole, and then stick a vacuum, like a shop vac, there in the end, and suck all of the air out of
What the fuck is wrong with you?
the bag. And the what will happen is that the garbage bag will seal itself very quickly to the face and the body of the small child, right? I mean, you're committing a murder here. Don't do it. Obviously, don't do it. But if you picture it, that's what Jimmy Carter looks like. It looks like someone has cinched all of his skin.
Why do you have to pick a child?
Into because that's the size of him now. Like, there's nothing left. And so you cinch all of the skin, and then you jam a shop vac into the hole there that you've also created in the man, and you just suck until all of the vitality and the air and all of the goo, like whatever's in there, is just coming out, and it's just a very thin sheet of skin pulled taut against a skeleton, and that is the 39th president of the United States right now. Probably not in too much worse shape than the 46th, oddly enough. A man who was asked this week about a strike. I think it was in Israel by Israel in against Hezbollah, and his response was that he thinks that the strike will be over soon. That the dock workers will come to some sort of an agreement.
Okay. He's paying attention to something. He's paying attention to the things that matter.
Any comment on the strikes in Yemen, Mr. President?
Both sides have got to settle the strike. support the collective bargaining effort. I think they'll settle us both.
That's the president of the United States, allegedly, who asked about a situation in the Middle East. Responds, oh, strike? Strike says dock workers, says the next word in my brain. Somebody get me the fuck out of here quick, is what he should be saying.
Isn't that how the large language models work? They kind of just guess the next word.
That's right. Joe Biden currently hallucinating just as well as Google Bard or ChatGPT. Great.
You know, the next benchmark, since this Jimmy Carter wants to live forever, the next benchmark is if he were the deciding vote in Georgia, right, and he put Harris over the top and he lived to January 20th, which is not that long from now, right, we would have 7 living presidents. Never happened before.
Is that true? We've never had 7 living presidents before?
We've never had 7 living presidents.
Wow.
Now you're rooting for him.
It'll die tomorrow.
Here's how. Jesus, you just fucking jinxed it. You sick fuck.
I'm on his side now. What do you mean?
Yeah, I'll bet.
Insurmountable lead for him, probably.
Jimmy just got the insurmountable lead thrown on him. Fucking, he's probably dead already. Jesus Christ. The way to solve it, and I know this isn't that show, we could have 7 living presidents right now if Joe Biden got 25th Amendment.
Yeah, that is true. Instead of sending
and then we could have 8 or no?
Yeah,
that's not how.
it would be
work.
8 presidencies. But instead of figuring out UCLA or whatever team he picked this week, like instead of worrying about weekly college football picks, he should send a letter to the president and say, "Step aside." And
this is the only
President
thing
can't read anymore.
keeping Jimmy Carter going, Abe. How dare you suggest that he stop making picks? He's making people money. He's 3-2 against the spread. That ain't easy, all right?
Yeah, he's doing better than me, and I'm like 60 years his junior.
You've been listening to Cast Iron Balls, a podcast about sports with Bob and Abe and Lori, too. Check us out on Substack, brainiron.substack.com, where if you like what we're doing here, you can listen to some other shit that we are also doing there, and perhaps become a paying subscriber if you are not already. You get nothing extra for that except the appreciation of contributing to something that you enjoy, and also the ability to comment on our Substack, which literally no one ever has. You could be the first commenter on our Substack if you become a paying subscriber. Also, the composer of our themes is Mark Gillig. He is part of a rock and roll band called Tetramer. Check them out at tetramermusic.com, Tetramer music.com. Should also mention, Jerry is the Thousand Man Jerry, listener of the show, plays in that band as well, and I will get to see them perform. I joked either here or on Cast Iron Brains about Tetramer being the wedding band for Mark Gillig's wedding. And as it turns out, they're going to play a short set at Gillig's wedding. And so they are, in fact, the wedding band. And I have never seen them live. I've never had that opportunity. And I finally get to make that happen, which is great because I think
you're not making that happen.
For me, it is being made to happen. Yeah.
Are you introducing them?
I guess
Probably.
I am, as the MC. Not only am I going to get to witness it, I get to introduce them, no less.
Nice.
Good times. Tetramermusic.com, Tetramer music.com for more from them. Abe, any additional sports content that you have consumed this week?
I was just reading this article this week. If you will recall, a couple of years ago, there was this Jaguars front office dude. He was like the financial manager for the Jaguars, a football team in Jacksonville.
The guy who embezzled like millions of dollars from the team?
He embezzled $22 million from the team to support his gambling addiction. He's now serving 6.5 years in prison somewhere in South Carolina. He's suing FanDuel for $250 million. He's alleging that they preyed on his addiction. Like they knew he was a degenerate gambler. The claim goes on to say that they gave him $1.1 million in gambling credits. They have like a handler. What do they call them? Like the big fish,
the
like whales. The people that the whales. Yeah, I guess he was a whale in the eyes of FanDuel, and they had like a designated personal host, and like whenever he would not bet, they would call him up to get him to bet. And in one case, they contacted him 100 times in a day. So he's saying that they knew how weak I was, and they just kept on coming after me. And every time I tried to stop, they would come to me. They would lure me in by giving me credits when I didn't have the money. They would float me money just so that I can continue my addiction. And he's trying to sue for $250 million. It's likely going to be thrown out of court, but I just find it amusing. Like what's the responsibility for a gambling company to we're preying on this person?
I have to tell you, I mean, I've only heard his side of the story in your brief rundown of the situation there. But I went from, if this was an Am I the Asshole segment, I went from saying, oh, this fucking guy is the asshole to FanDuel is the asshole very quickly. So I don't know what the legal ramifications are or what the result will be. But if they are contacting major bettors, like people who spend a lot of money on their app dozens or hundreds of times a day, that is in direct conflict with that little note that pops up every time I log into my FanDuel account that says if you have a problem gambling, you should consider calling this number.
One factor against Amit Patel, the degenerate gambler who's in prison, there was a lawsuit that was dismissed. It was brought up by the same attorney, but they were going after an Atlantic City casino, and it was dismissed, stating that there was no legal duty to cut off compulsive gamblers. So basically, like, even though you can be an asshole, according to at least one judge, there's no legal requirement to cut. It's not like alcohol where this person's too drunk and they kill somebody. There isn't that second component where a degenerate gambler is not going to go drive and kill somebody. So there's, so I think it'll likely go the same way. But they should have some sort of like additional.
I want the Jaguars, the NFL's Jacksonville Jaguars, to become a party in this lawsuit and say, like, he wouldn't have been embezzling millions of dollars from our organization, but for FanDuel, and that would be.
But for our partner FanDuel.
But for our fine partner FanDuel. That's an interesting story. What a bunch of assholes! And also, I will gamble in the neighborhood of a couple of $100 on FanDuel this weekend.
I assume you don't have a personal host, right? No one's calling you. What's up?
As a subsistence gambler who has not added money to his FanDuel account in years, literally, like since the first months that the app went live here in Virginia, I don't think I'm appealing at all to them as a customer. The only thing that I wanted to mention here is a brief note about Antonio Pierce, former Giant great. Yeah, Las Vegas Raiders coach Antonio Pierce has been found to have knowingly and blatantly disregarded and violated recruiting rules during the COVID-19 pandemic while he was Arizona State's associate head coach and recruiting coordinator. The punishment for this, handed down by the NCAA to the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, is that any school that hires him for the next 8 years has to have a show cause. A show cause penalty means that they have to prove why they should be permitted to hire Antonio Pierce. So it's effectively a coaching ban from coaching at the NCAA level. And it's just an example for me, yet again, of the NCAA leveling punishments that simply do not matter in any conceivable way. There's a 0% chance that even if Antonio Pierce were to be fired as head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, that he would seek to become a head coach in college football at some point in the next 8 years. He's now been a head coach in the NFL. He can go work somewhere else in the NFL and make more money than he would at whatever second-tier school he would be hired on as to become their head coach. Like, it's just one more example of the NCAA's utter irrelevance in terms of an attempt to enforce their rules. It seems very silly to me.
Didn't they also do some sort of punishment for Jim Harbaugh now that he's in the NFL? Like,
yeah, he can't graduate or something.
Right. It's like meaningless. What's even the point of like saying you're doing something where it had like no real life impact?
Right. It's just a totally useless bureaucracy attempting to establish its authority, even though they don't really have any. As I said, now is the time to give Michigan a very harsh 1-year postseason ban right before they lose 4 of their next 6 games. Anyway, Lori, did you have anything you wanted to add to our show tonight?
No, I don't.
No. Abe, have you got anything else for us tonight?
Nope.
Well, I guess that's all we've got for you tonight then. We will talk to you next time.
Later.
I'm going to play this live now just because I know I'm going to drop it into the show at least 3 or 4
Yeah.
times.
Fizzle. Let's go early. What we do? I like driving in my truck. He likes to drive in his truck. Auburn sucks. Auburn sucks. I like driving in my truck. He likes to drive in his truck. Auburn sucks. Auburn sucks. I like trucks. He likes trucks. I don't care for Auburn. He doesn't care for Auburn. Hoes.
I mean, it's great. It's a great song.
I fucking love it. And
It's so
if I'm
good.
being like, I don't think that the Jimmy Carter lock of the week exists, except that this character used to give his lock of the week on the SVP radio show.
No kidding.
Yeah. The guy who created that character would record a lock of the week. I think he did it for 2 seasons, maybe only 1, but I think it was a couple of seasons. And it is in the spirit of that, the fucking Squidbilly lock of the week, that Jimmy Carter gives his lock of the week on this show. I don't think it would exist otherwise.
That's funny.
Maybe, again, either am I stealing or am I improving upon? I'm not sure.
I think you're improving on it.
I mean, yeah, it's just like you're inspired.
Yeah, no, good artists are inspired. Great artists steal. If we don't win, if they don't allow, like, what's going to piss me off the most in this game is if Carson Beck is not permitted to come out and play this sort of game that he played in the second half, and instead we go back to that fucking bullshit. And I didn't say this in the show. I forgot. I wanted to mention. I think that if I'm reevaluating what Mark Stoops did against Georgia versus what he did against Ole Miss, there's a reason that Mark Stoops didn't go for it on 4th down at midfield against Georgia, because you don't do that against the Dogs because the Dogs are fucking awesome. You do that against Lance Kiffin and Ole Miss because that's fucking Lance Kiffin and Ole Miss, and who fucking cares, right? You make that sort of a try against them, and you don't do it against us. And if we had been humiliated through 4 quarters against Alabama, I think all of a sudden it changes the perspective of who Georgia is in the SEC.
Of course it does.
Yeah.
It's not just perspective. A team coming back from a 28-point deficit says so much.
Yeah. And so, but I wonder if...
Against Alabama, not a 28-point deficit against a shitty team, against a really good team.
But it's just funny because I think if Mark Stoops goes for it there and wins it, and Kentucky fucking storms the field, because that's what would have happened.
Yeah.
Like, if he had just had the fucking balls to do it, and they make that one play and they win that fucking game, like, how do you let that go? And I think it has everything to do with the psychology of that moment, which is like, he is thoroughly intimidated by what the Georgia program has been for the last 4 years, and Alabama fucking wasn't, right? Kentucky wasn't against Ole Miss.
But also, he didn't do it against Georgia, not because of the G on the helmet, but because we had managed to stop them most of the game. Against Ole Miss, he had been scoring against them. It's not just the concept; it's the actually what's happening.
Maybe.
I don't know. If I didn't care, it would be so obvious to me that Georgia just kills Auburn this weekend.
Yeah.
I can't say that because I do care, and I'm like, oh, what if I'm wrong?
I mean, their defense isn't half bad, and when
I know.
the offense worked at times, it's just
And
that
Smile Mondin is out
they're-
for mysterious reasons.
they're prone to mistakes.
Although we're apparently getting the mono kid back.
I so want them, and I know that it is against the DNA of Kirby Smart. I want them to see what this offense can do when it's fucking unleashed. And if there's a team to do it against, it's this rotten fucking Auburn team. You're not going to try it against Texas or Ole Miss or Tennessee unless you desperately need to, the way that you needed to against Alabama in the second half. But, like, do it now. See what you can do. Hang half 100 on them. Like, fuck it. It's Auburn.
Fun.
Who fucking cares?
Yeah.
I don't care for Auburn. He doesn't care for Auburn. Hoes.
We don't care for Auburn. Fucking make them hurt. Tampa Bay kicks a field goal. Only up a touchdown, Abe. It's going to be tight here in the fourth quarter.
Oh, boy. Let's see.
All right, man.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
The proceeding was created with 100% human content.
Auburn sucks. Auburn sucks. I like driving in my truck. He likes to drive in his truck. Auburn sucks. Auburn sucks. I like trucks. He likes trucks. I don't care for Auburn. He doesn't care.